Welcome to the April 8th meeting of the Kingston Board of Selectmen. Please join me in rising to a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We just completed a short non-public session, and we have no appointments scheduled. And so I will open up the meeting to public comment number 1. Is there any public? Chief Halloran, come on down.
Wasting no time.
Mr. Bashaw used to make fun of me because I never made an appointment, and I would always do this during public comment, so here I am. A few things. One, I would like to thank the townspeople for their patience over this past nor'easter. Thank the police chief and director of DPW, as well as Tom Ambrose from the school. We all worked together throughout the event. We responded to 50-plus calls for service. In constant contact with the Madam Chair to keep her and the board apprised of the situation. We discussed with Tom Ambrose and Dan Doyle opening the shelter a few times. We didn't end up needing to do that. We had a warming shelter at the fire station, but all in all, I think the event went as smoothly as possible. So thank you to everybody involved.
Great, thank you, and thank you all departments, highway, police, fire, and the school for sure, to coordinate accordingly and keep things moving forward. It's been a number of years since we've had a serious outage, and I want to say it's been a lot of years since anything serious. The last one serious was 11 days, if I remember correctly, and hopefully we'll never have to see that again. But you guys did a terrific job getting things back online, and thank you all very much for what you did. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Glenn.
Chief, did you want to brief anybody listening on the Seabrook drill?
So I haven't heard anything back yet. I've heard positive from the from the 3 evaluators that we had there. So as most people know, we do a Seabrook drill cycle every other year. Where we have 2 practices and 1 graded. So we had 2 people from representing FEMA and 1 representing the state this past Wednesday. Thank you for the board members that came and everybody else that helped out. So we basically opened up the Emergency Operations Center at the fire station to full activation and kind of role play through radiological release. They throw injunctions at us like a traffic jam on 125 due to an accident, or people calling the station to take the KI pills. So as far as I know, everything went well, and I'll hear more in the coming weeks of if we passed or not, but I think everything was a thumbs up.
Great, thank you, Chief. Any other comments or questions?
One last public comment, not to take up the whole time here. So you had before you a few weeks ago a facilities use for a brew fest on June 29th, I believe. So speaking with my fire association and with Stacy Dion and a few others, we've decided to expand that with the vacancy of Kingston Days this year. So we're planning on June 28th, 29th, and 30th to make it a weekend. I have another facilities use here. Joel, the police chief, has yet to sign it, but I talked to him. So we're looking at bringing a carnival, doing similar but on a smaller scale to Kingston Days. So we'll have a carnival there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, bonfire on Saturday night with the Brew Fest, and music throughout the weekend. Car show, possibly, if we can find one. Touch a truck, the mini bike jumpers, a lot of low-key, low-impact events, but something to kind of bring back the Kingston Days without having to put all the work into Kingston Days. So, like I said, I have a facilities use permit for that here this evening. If you have any questions, or I'm free to answer them now.
I think the only thing missing from the old carnival days would be a roulette wheel.
So
I know where that is.
Do you know where it is?
I most certainly
Oh.
do.
a few years ago, we still have the horse wheel, they call it,
Okay.
at the fire station. It does work. It needs some TLC, shall we say.
Okay.
So we could do that with, I actually looked into that several years ago for Kingston Days, and in order to get a gambling permit per se, then every person in that organization, not just that are gonna be doing it that night, or throughout the weekend, whatever, every person needs to have a background check, criminal background check and all that. So it's a lot, but we were thinking of maybe bringing it back with non-gambling, like financial prizes possibly, but just to have it there at least for nostalgia, I guess.
Well, I'm glad you're working on it.
Chief, who's going to be the spearhead for the 3-day event? Is it going to be the fire department, or are you bringing back in some of the Kingston community to help you put
So
that together?
Stacy Dion, can't say no. So she's helping us a lot. We kind of just started this, and obviously a lot hinges on you guys approving this. So it's the fire association, which will be the spearhead.
Thank you.
So we gave Kingston Days last year $5,000 to put on the fireworks show, and we kind of, there was a lot of back and forth, and I really like Kingston Days, and, plan to be here those 3 days this year, was there 3 days last year, so we didn't want nothing to happen this year for the town residents, so we're planning this event.
So are you calling it the Brew Fest? What are you calling it?
No, so the Brewfest is only one event during it, but a lot of, some financial institutions won't give money and donations towards a Brewfest because it doesn't really fit their brackets per se. So we're not sure what we're calling it, Firefest or the old Kingston, I don't know, Kingston Carnival. We're not sure what we're going to call it yet, but there'll be several events. The Brewfest is just one event during that. The Highway DPW is going to do their cow patty during it. So it'll mimic Kingston Days, but I think on a smaller event, a smaller scale.
A lot of towns call their festivals Old Home Days. So it's an option. It's kind of a generic.
Yeah, June.
June 28, 29, and 30th. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we are looking at, I spoke with the police chief, whatever details he needs will be covered at full cost by the association. Spoke with DPW Director Coombs about the possibility of a bonfire and getting wood and stuff for that. So one thing we would like to do is have the traffic rerouted again, just as a safety device for the potential for a good attendance, hopefully.
And that was doing it one way around the plains, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
worked
same
out
as
well.
we do every year.
Yeah, that worked out well. Any other- I think it's a terrific idea.
All right, so I'll leave this here for you to sign, and we'll
Yes.
plan on moving forward
Yep.
unless there's any major issues.
Thank you
thank
very much, Chief. Okay. So we're going to go on to old business now. Accept unanticipated funds on the Kingston Days donations on the check from to the museum. And Paula had where did Paula go? She sent us a note on that. Should have been in your packet, right?
It came by email.
By email. Paula, did you want to talk about that, please? Yeah.
So last week, after we were discussing the donation from Kingston Days to the museum and the Kingston Museum and the Kingston Carriage Museum,
Yeah.
I decided to, after we were like hemming and hawing about all kinds of things, I went on NHMA, I did some research, and I emailed them to ask them a specific question about it and if we were actually allowed to do it. The Carriage Museum is a little different because it's a separate organization, and we were kind of it's a donation, but it's not because we damaged something and we were paying to fix it. But for the museum next door, what I had asked NHMA was that if a town has a committee, and I said Old Home Days, because no one knows what Kingston Days is, that receives money via fundraising at the event and only has a savings account, all expenses are for the committee, all the expenses for the committee are paid out of the general fund and reimbursed by the savings account from the committee. The select board oversees the spending from that account. The town also has a historic museum that does not have a separate bank account and runs through the budget of the town. The museum does have a volunteer not-for-profit called the Friends of the Kingston Historical Museum that is not connected to the town at all. Can the Kingston Days Committee donate money to the Kingston Historical Museum, not the Friends of the Museum? I honestly don't see how they can, since it's technically the town to the town. It doesn't seem that it would be unanticipated funds, and where would the money go once we deposited it? The budget is created and there isn't a separate bank account for the museum. Just trying to understand the situation. What they said was the most important distinction to make here is whether or not funds have been appropriated by the town or if they have been donated directly to a specific entity by a non-governmental institute. What I mean is this: if the town appropriates money to Kingston Days Committee through the budget process, those funds can be transferred throughout other departments during the year via a line item transfer. In that instance, the select board could move the funds from the committee to the museum. We know that. However, it sounds like the Days Committee is funded directly through donations. These donations are funds that are held in trust for the charitable purpose for which they were donated. That money cannot be transferred to a different town entity unless, in the opinion of, he was referring to trustees of the trust fund, but it serves as the same purpose. So, in our case, it's not the trustees, it's the select board. So, in retrospect, and this is what I said in the email to you guys, is that we really can't do the donation from Kingston Days to the museum, because the way Kingston Days was created was in 1990, and it was created to subsidize the money, to raise money for the anniversaries. So the 300, I think the 300th, then eventually the 325th, and now the 350th. 350th. So the purpose is, it doesn't serve the purpose of what that fund was set up for. And we have like 80,000, I don't have the right amount, but 80,000 in that account. And usually the budget for Kingston Days, the budget that the committee creates for themselves is about 25 to 30,000. So we usually keep that much in there and then move the rest back to the trust fund for the anniversary, because there's a separate trust fund for that.
Right, and I believe the objective each year is to raise the money that was spearheaded by the town, at least make that whole, and then give whatever else.
Yep.
So before you go on to the next thing, Paula.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the request to us from the Kingston Days Committee was for 2 donations, one to the museum and one to...
The carriage
The
house.
carriage
on
house?
Marshall Road.
Carriage and sleigh museum.
Got it.
Yeah.
So because that's a non-town entity, that one's okay?
That's okay, and we damaged something, so we were giving them that
Got it.
money to kind of
Compensate.
Sure.
compensate.
Okay. So with regard to the museum, if the Days Committee had said the donation would go to the Friends and not the museum, could that have happened?
Doesn't sound like it, but
I honestly don't think so,
Okay.
but
I'm just thinking
it
that
depends
might,
on what the purpose of the donation was for.
I'm thinking that if they could, that might be another way to skin the cat and to get the money over into that area.
Yeah, it would depend on what the donation was for, because the money coming out of that account has to serve the purpose of what the account was set up for in the first place.
Okay.
Mrs. Dion, would you like to come forward to expand on that a little bit?
So I hear what Paula has said, but I also look at that Kingston Days in 1990 was about the 300th anniversary. And we hopped onto what was the flea market for the museum and worked with the museum for whatever amount of time. I think when we discussed this in September, they didn't have their flea market with Kingston Days, and we kind of wanted to do something to kind of be like, to mend the bridge between Kingston Days and the museum is what we really wanted to do. And I think that looking at this from like a logistics and all of that, I think it was what we tried to do and get that to kind of work together as, you know, trying to build camaraderie between all the organizations in the town. I think that is what we tried to do from a Kingston Days perspective, from like what the committee had discussed. It's just, I think that if you look back at how Kingston Days started and then you look at the flea market that the museum has had, we've kind of flip-flopped on what was going on, and I think it's, I think the wishes of the Kingston Days Committee was to be able to give something back to the museum. And I just want to make sure that we all kind of understand that that's kind of where we were thinking when we were doing this. We didn't, obviously, we understood that it was another town organization, but I think with not having the flea market with Kingston Days, we wanted to make sure that they got something back, I guess. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments?
No, only that I would like us to be able to find some way to make this work and to satisfy the wishes of the Kingston Days Committee and to honor their desires and their requests. And I don't know how we do that, but
Well, you can ignore what the NHMA has said. Just do what we want to do. Whatever.
Well, I think we'd have to give it to the Friends then, from, since they're not a town.
Yeah, but they're also a 501c3.
they are.
Yeah.
Well, I'm ignorance, what does that have to do with it? I don't understand.
I don't know what it has to do with it. All I know is that it is not a town entity, and I think in that respect, it's somewhat different. From NHMA's perspective, I don't know that it is that different, but it is a different entity for sure.
Then make a motion.
All right, then I'll make a motion that that the Kingston Days Committee be allowed to. Is that the motion? Mm-hmm. Is that the
Yeah.
To make a donation to benefit the Kingston Historical Museum by donation to the Kingston Friends of the Historical Museum.
Second.
That's a long-winded way of saying it. But.
Second.
Is there discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? So it's 4-1. So you can authorize the finance director to make a check out for $300 to the Kingston Historical, or the Friends of the Kingston Historical Museum. Okay, item next. I think it's Mr. Coombs' time. Double power poles, discussion of remedies. Highway Director Phil Coombs.
So at the department head meeting, I brought up that Eversource now is the owner of our poles, but we still have more than 83 double poles in town, where Consolidated has left the old apparatus on the, everybody else has moved to the new pole that either Eversource or Unitil has installed. So this is problematic for a couple reasons. There's lost revenue on this because there is a pole license, there's a fee associated with the pole license, and essentially they're putting two poles where they're only paying for one. Previously, I had spoken with Attorney Radigan at DTC at the board's behest, and he had advised that a new policy change was needed for the right-of-way and basically how many poles could be put there, and then adjusting the fines and fees as necessary. All this information was given to, at the time, Chairman Wilson, but I just wanted to give the update on that because we'd been working with Eversource on another project, and I brought it up to them. I believe the statement was forwarded to the board.
Yep.
So at this point, it's kind of, I've taken it as far as I can take it. It's going to require a policy change or some sort of action on the board's part.
So with regard to the extra pole, the one that's left, those poles are now only carrying Consolidated?
Correct.
Everything else has been moved?
Correct.
So are we somehow in contact with Consolidated to?
They have no interest in doing anything about it.
So Eversource owns the poles now.
So they own the new poles.
Didn't they take over the consolidated poles, or no?
And herein lies the problem. So there's two poles on there. Eversource will claim that they own the new pole. The one that's there and still has the telephone wires on it is
Does
someone else's.
Consolidated pay a fee to Eversource to have their pole, their power, their lines on a pole?
Most likely, and that's why they're not moving them.
So you think, I would think Eversource would have some type of leeway versus the town of Kingston against Consolidated to get them off that pole. You would think, because they're the ones leasing that pole to Consolidated.
It's very murky as to who owns what, and maybe their ploy is to keep them on the old pole so they don't have to pay for being on the new pole.
Are we at least getting something from Consolidated for having their pole? You know,
No.
we're not,
No.
and we can't?
It would require a fee change
Oh,
by
and
the
that's,
board.
and that's
Or
where
a
you were
policy
going with
change
this?
to the pole licensing.
Okay.
And we don't have control over that.
Oh, my God.
Well, we do.
So I was looking at the letter from last May from Sanssouci. It sounded like Eversource was taking over and all this was going to switch over and the town didn't need to do anything right away. Then the last thing is Eversource saying, we can't.
Yeah, I mean, they explicitly said that they will not be moving Consolidated's equipment off of the old poles onto the new poles.
So what are other towns doing?
Well, Consolidated has to move their stuff. I mean, another utility is not going to move Consolidated's equipment.
Is it going to take a court order? I mean, is it time that we?
There are numerous other towns, and that's what I went to the attorney to discuss, was what other towns are doing, and basically they're drafting policy changes. I think, you know, it was kind of getting out of what I could do, so I passed it on to the select board at that time. It's probably going to take more action by the select board and getting further into the weeds with the attorney to see what they recommend and what kind of policy changes they advocate for.
So I did send an email to Sanssouci just explaining where we're at and if there's something else we're supposed to do or if we're headed towards legal action, see if they can give us any guidance.
And I think it's basically a town issue because we're the ones who issue the pole license. It's our rules that they fall under. So I don't see some sweeping court order or anything that's going to fix this.
So we can change our rules, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, then,
Well,
What's our existing rule? Where is that? Is anybody?
so there is a pole license that is paid for and there are rules written within that. But with regards to the policy, I was unable to find one.
Okay.
The public rights of
Don't say
way,
it.
that doesn't
Just don't
cover
say it.
exactly what we're talking
So,
about.
and that was what they advocated for, was a change
Thank
to
you.
the right-of-way policy on behalf of the
We made
board.
a change to that.
Yes.
So will NHMA help us with a policy that needs to be updated?
They are the ones who referred us to,
Sanssouci?
no, to DTC, Attorney Radigan with DTC.
Oh, okay. All right.
We had used them previously on another right-of-way, I believe it was cell phone.
Yeah.
I need a diagram, it's too confusing.
Phil, do you think that we're headed down the road of needing to engage more fully with Attorney Radigan?
Yes, I would advocate for having that's their specialty, is dealing
Right.
with utilities in these kind of circumstances, so yes, I would advocate for that.
This is an old problem that needs to be addressed at some point, just to clear up those poles. Because we can't take them down, because we can't move their equipment.
No, we can't touch it.
We can't touch it. Right. It's a catch-22 for us.
What's consolidated?
It's a communications.
It's the old Verizon or New England Tel or whatever
They
the
have- they have
Fairpoint
it-
before that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Fidium.
internet and phone.
Fidium fiber.
That was kind of the maddening thing, is they touched every pole in town to put the new fiber optic line, but could not move their,
So cutting it wouldn't be a good idea.
No,
Okay, just checking.
yeah, no.
So if we see you out there with a chainsaw,
Do you,
but I mean, if the tree warden deems them to be a hazard to the road and we have to cut them, I mean,
okay.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to create more work for myself. However, I do know Attorney Radigan. I've worked with him before.
Okay.
If the board would like me to, I'm happy to give him a call. If you are passing this off to us, Phil,
I've kind of taken it as far as I can go. I mean, it would require the board.
Action from the board at this
Yes.
point.
if you want me to at least get some background from Attorney Radigan and bring it back to the board, I can.
I think that would be appropriate. And
I'm
maybe
happy to have you do that. If you're happy to do that.
Well, I mean, this.
Phil's happy, I know that.
Well, the first call is not going to be a difficult one. It's the work that results afterwards that's going to take some time.
He may need to meet with the full board to update, once you guys figure out what the problem is and how we might, a solution, and what some
So
alternatives
I'll
are.
chat with him, I'll get his advice on how he thinks we should proceed, and if he thinks that, coming before the board to have a discussion about it first, then we can set that up.
I'm almost thinking that Eversource wants to set the new pole, correct? They want to put the new poles in?
In
So-
almost every they've already put the new
They're
poles
done,
in.
they're in.
I understand that, but from going forward, you're not gonna put the new poles in until this is all lined up, because we're not gonna keep dealing with this. Put it on them, they're the utility company, they're the one charging those people to be on that pole, they need to have that stuff squared away, or they're gonna pay for two poles.
So this is the problem, is they have not pulled the pole licenses when they've set these new poles. So a pole license hadn't been pulled in the town of Kingston since, I believe, 2015, when I looked into it. And I think recently there was one other one that Tammy told me about, but someone had recently put one in, but, so it's kind of claiming both things. Consolidate's gonna claim, well, we already have a license on this pole, and Eversource will claim that, no, we took over the license, which I'm guessing has more legal standing with it. But again, this is far beyond my comprehension level, so.
Fortunately, not that often.
That's what they can all say, not my pole.
Okay, well, thanks, Glenn, for at least making that contact with Mr. Radigan.
Sure, and I'll report back to you, Ellie, if once I know, and then you can decide how you want to set it up with regard to a meeting.
Because my guess is that he will need to come in and speak to all of us,
Probably.
give us some choices.
I mean, this is also all wrapped up in all kinds of PUC and RSA stuff with regard to make work or make ready. I think it's called make ready, and it has to do with when stuff like this happens, there's a process, but there's also long periods of time that can go. It doesn't necessarily have to happen quickly, and you end up in quandaries like we're in.
In and out, right.
When they change poles, and then all the various carriers have to move their stuff to the new pole. It often does not happen all at once, and so you end up with multiple poles on the ground, multiple stuff running on different poles, and maybe someday everything gets back on one pole, but it's a mess.
I mean, this request has been put into them numerous times. They didn't even have a listing. We gave them the listing, all the poll numbers, addresses, all of that, and still nothing's happened, so.
Phil did quite a bit of work a while back, a few years back, on trying to get this resolved, and we threw our hands up in the air, basically, is what happened. So maybe we can do more progress this time.
Lawyers all get them.
It's worth a shot, right?
They get them every time.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Phil.
Yep.
Okay, item next, approval of new and revised policies.
There's a few in the orange folder that were ready to be signed, but then Lori's got the newer ones that went around to the department heads. I didn't get any comments except for some language, slight language changes from Paula, which I incorporated. I don't know if you want to go ahead and approve those, or if you want a chance to look further at them.
Okay, so I just want to quickly go over what we have. So policy creation and approval process. What I had added in here for a change was 525, administrative changes that do not impact content, i.e. if you change the date on a form or you update the template, it doesn't have to go to review for the department heads.
And you had talked about that at the last.
So that's that one, and that was the only one that we changed there. So that allows for kind of quicker, when Susan and I start looking at the older policies and get them in the new template, they don't have to go out for complete review.
Because there's two policies in our packets
Yeah,
here.
there should be 3.
Invoice processing and accounts payable,
Those are the two that were already.
Yeah,
purchasing
yeah,
policy.
we went through those last time, we just need to sign those.
Sign them, yes, okay.
The ones that I gave just to Lori were just, I fixed this afternoon,
Oh,
based
so-
on the fact we got no changes besides that.
Right, so these are ready for approval as well.
So you need, but the board doesn't have copies of them, so why don't we, so we should have copies sent out, emailed out for next Monday's agenda.
They were emailed though, last week.
They went out last week, but they haven't department heads. I can send them out again if you want to take a better look.
It's up to the board, I mean, I remember we've had a number come through, so what's your pleasure? Do you want a hard copy to read in the final stages?
I don't, you know, if they're satisfied with the stuff that's the
Okay.
new
Yeah,
ones,
then-
then let's just.
then-
Right,
sign it.
okay.
Prepare them for signatures.
And then we updated the Kingston Town website, and I added in Facebook content management, since we have an official Facebook page now, I added a paragraph in there talking about Facebook content and who manages it and what kind of content. We had discussed this prior to us even launching the page. So that was all in there. That's paragraph 7. So that's the only thing that was changed on that. And then the new one, I think that we need to discuss, was the facilities maintenance and service request. This is a brand new one for the
Highway
portal,
Department.
right? So I know there were comments. Paula made a comment, and where did you incorporate that?
First paragraph, I think I made a note on those sticky notes. It's basically changing buildings and maintenance over to DPW was one part of it. And I think rather than users versus, it was just language.
But you had did you have a question about timelines or something like that? No, she had, and you have an answer for that? Do you have an answer for that? So what was your,
I may not have the actual wording properly
Yeah, right,
now,
right.
but what I was asking was, there's nothing in it that says, okay, I sent in a request, when will they respond to me? Because to a week, like, I don't know what, I'm saying me. I'm talking about everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know what an emergency is.
Right.
So will we get a response saying, we got your request, blah, 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 we're gonna work on it, it's gonna take X amount of time? And then will there be follow-up, like, or is the only way for us to find follow-up is going on the portal
Right.
and checking our request every day or whatever?
Right. And I think Phil can
Follow-up
probably
saying
speak to that.
it was done or
Sure.
whatever.
Yep.
Those were my comments.
Thanks, Paula.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I believe, Laura, you had a comment on a similar vein of who could check the status.
Yep.
So there's a 13-digit code or a 12-digit code that comes with it, and that's the only way to check the status. That was kind of one, it's a bare bones option that we chose not to spend more money on. So this is kind of, email notifications and those kind of things were a lot more money with another provider. So this is kind of, it does the job, but it's not pretty. But
So-
anybody who has that code can access the status of,
And they get the code when they submit a request.
correct.
So if you have that code, anybody can check.
Yep,
So it doesn't matter if you're a part of that department or not.
correct.
So you need the code to check the status. So email notifications are not going out,
No, they do not.
okay? And what about response time?
So it typically depends on what the ask is. If it's, can you change a light bulb, we typically can get to that in a day or two. If it's install an accordion door, that takes a little while to get custom order things put in and,
But they get a response right away. I mean, that we receive your request for X, and someone will get back to you.
yeah, right now we're averaging within 24 hours, we have it under review or under action.
That's great, that's good.
But you don't get an automatic response by that, by what you're just saying.
You don't,
You do not.
okay.
You submit a request and you get a response with a code that you can check on your request, but that's the only response you ever get back.
All right,
So it's a very manual process. Nothing's being pushed out. You have to
Gotcha.
go get it.
all right. Well, we can give it a try, and if it doesn't work, then we can go from there.
And people are always welcome to email or call with any questions. I mean, it's just to make sure that we're documenting.
Chief Pellerin,
Just a question for Phil. So, obviously, it's a new system, and I think it could work great. So we put in like an ant problem at the fire station. So we had Tom dropped off like bait traps or whatever, and then Kelly, I think, mentioned something about possibly spraying as well. So we got something today that said it was completed. Is there a way to follow up with with like an email saying, we did spray, or we're gonna monitor the ant traps, or what, like, just getting completed? I feel like there's gonna be confusion there, because if you didn't spray and we still have the ant problem, then we put it in again, you know what I mean? So is there, without having two-way communication, I guess, can you spray? Yes, we sprayed,
Yeah, so we discussed that this morning, and I don't think there's actually a pest control contract on your building, or if there is,
I
it's
don't
just for
think there ever has been,
mice
but-
or whatever, but, because we don't have regular sprayings built in, so it was on Lisa's to-do list to contact Pest End and just see what the process is for that.
That was just an example, but.
So I think what your question is, though, you need more information. Did you get something that said completed, or you went into it to find out it was completed?
No, I think it kicks back something that says, like, once you guys close it out, it says completed.
Okay.
But that's all.
I got
You
one
didn't
for the
get-
fan blade thing.
But I think if you go into it, you can see notes, right?
Yes, and we've been updating notes, so if you go in and check the status of
Okay.
something, as we are aware of things, so I think for that one, just using that example, the note was written in this morning that the cups were dropped off at the fire department, given to Kelly or something,
Okay.
along those lines.
So, okay. So it sounds like I just need to come over and sit with you guys and figure out how to add more information. So Paul, I'm just still thinking about response time. Because it is hard to, I think it's hard for them to, we can't, like, I don't think they want to give a list of these things. If this occurs, it'll be responded to in 24 hours or something like that, right? So I don't,
What I was just asking was, is there going to be an email or something outside of the program saying, we got this?
Yeah.
Like, that's, I think, the communication and with the different departments, because we're just gonna be sitting there just, we put in this request, now we're getting nothing.
right, and that's the way the system is, so you have to go into it and check, because it's not every time the status changes, it's not pushing an email out.
Right,
Right,
but
Correct.
right,
But when it's closed, apparently it does.
but there's a lot between open and closed.
Absolutely. So a lot of them are put in the status of awaiting review. So like larger ones that are going to take more time are put in the awaiting review status.
Right,
Otherwise, we just go out and do it if it's pretty straightforward in the write-up what is supposed to be done. So
how much would the upgrade to get a response cost?
I actually think that was with another software offering that had all that connectivity after the fact.
We can give it a try as it stands now, and if it becomes a problem, then we'll address it then. I mean, there's no reason to believe that you guys are not able to take care of most things in a timely fashion.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than it used to be when someone would say something and then just nothing
And
happened
forget,
with
right,
it, or.
right, you'd forget, right.
So
At
we
least-
just need to make sure everybody is aware that they have to go in and check on their ticket and not wait for a response,
And
because
hope-
that's the thing, right?
And hopefully, right.
That's where I was coming, like, when I
Yep.
was reading it, that's
Yep.
the only thing that was
Okay,
what
all right,
popped
so
in.
I can add in there to make sure that it triggers the user to go in there
Okay.
and check.
All right,
Okay,
that sounds good.
yeah.
Any other questions,
All right.
comments on this? Okay, thanks, Phil.
So we can sign two, and I got work to do on the other one.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad, moving forward. Not at all. Okay, the next one is a new business, water sampling results report, approval for submission. Are we all set with that?
It was a very lengthy thing, I sent in an email, it was about 50 pages long.
Yeah.
I actually read it and have questions.
Oh my God.
But I'll sit with you after.
Okay, well, we can work with Sam Boardhead if you have specific questions.
Okay.
Is it generic types of things?
It is,
or your
mostly we had 6 poet and 20 getting water. But then they changed it and now they're saying we have 21. And I don't know where that happened, and I tried to read in the report. Are we delivering to 21 residents?
I think we are, because wasn't there, as of the last report, there was an additional residence identified as being over the limit, and so we had to add a residence, so it would be 21.
Okay. That was mostly, I think it needs to be called out better in that report. It
And
doesn't
that
say anywhere.
happened within the last couple of months, late last year, okay.
Okay. That's mostly what it was. It was like,
Okay.
I was a little confused. Okay. Okay,
It's 15th is next Monday, so
yeah.
not that, it's not much time. Okay, so we're gonna follow up with that, Laurie. All right, procedures for weather emergencies. You requested this as a,
I did. So on Thursday, it got a little confusing on who makes the call to close town hall, under what circumstances. It just was a lot of communication that I feel like we were making the call on the fly. Like, I don't understand the process. Who's supposed to make the call? When do we make the call?
we make the call collectively with police, fire, highway, works with the chairman of the board. The 3 experts make the calls, basically. Then the chairman notifies the other board members what's going to happen next.
Usually it
That's
has to do with
totally-
electricity, heat, things like that, if there's no electricity.
That's not what happened on Thursday at all.
So what happened on Thursday?
Well,
The town office was open,
Town office was,
it was all plowed out, we had heat, we had electricity.
But-
People showed up to work. Then the
so
call was made before we lost power.
Considering the weather conditions, just because there was power here, doesn't mean it was safe for people to drive into work.
So in our policy, we come to work no matter what. And unless there's no power. So what we usually do, and this is kind of what we did on Friday morning, because the closing happened before, I was in the process of taking care of it when the text started coming out. Thursday morning, I texted Tom at 7:30 and I said, do we have power at the town hall? And he said, we did, I'll be there in 5 minutes to check if we don't anymore. And then in that meantime, I usually text with Susan and Tammy. And we say, like, this is what's going on, blah, 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 we're gonna work from home, or whatever. I was in the process of doing that, because then if I wasn't here yet, if we didn't have power, then we would have called Ellie first, because we usually call the chair first, and then we go down the line from there. So, but it was closed before we even got to that. That's when I got your text, and that's when we lost power. And so we never finished the process. The town hall was just closed before we got through the process. Friday morning, I was texting with Tammy, and I said, do we have internet, and do we have, is the server up? And she said no, and so I called Ellie, I left her a message, then I called Chuck, and I called you, but we couldn't really talk, so I called Chuck. And then it came back on, so we didn't even have to finish because, but
Had power, right?
Thursday, we had to close down. People were in here already. Some were still making their way in. But people were in here and they were working for a little while, and then the power went out. And so then we sent them home. And that's how it's usually, it's a line, like
not
the
usually a
people in the
big deal,
building
but-
figure out what's going on, and then we call the select board.
Yeah, because police and fire are different.
Those
as
are
is the
different.
highway.
Yep.
It's really just the town hall, but it's a concerted effort between Paula, Susan, and Tammy. Depends on circumstances. Weather can be bad. We had a lot of bad weather in general, and still open the town hall. As long as we have power, come to work.
Because for the town hall to run, we need internet and we need the server.
Correct, that's correct. Like Tammy can't process any of the registrations and so forth.
Yeah, we need, all of us need it.
Right, okay.
So just a question. I was unaware of the process, so it's interesting. I didn't know if there were times that the town would, in anticipation of perhaps bad weather, would, the night before, like what they do with school closings, make a decision not to open town hall. But we
No, we've
have not
never.
done that.
No,
Okay.
no, schools, no.
No, I understand.
I won't even go there.
So I think part of my, it was just really chaotic. I mean, it was very chaotic that morning. And,
Well,
the chain of command and all of that. But, so, from what I'm hearing is if people, everybody's expected to come in here, but people were already choosing to work from home. So that kind of throws it, I don't know, it just, there's a lot of
I
moving
don't think
parts
there
there.
was any really confusion. Maybe you were confused, no offense, because you didn't.
Well, sure, because
you didn't know. You just didn't
there's
know.
nothing anywhere, and we had Pedro who drove for 2 hours to get here, 2 hours. He shouldn't have been driving in that weather. He should not have been driving in that weather.
He's gotta pick the phone up and call somebody.
Right.
Before, he's gotta.
But how would he know? We don't have anything that says that in bad weather, this is what happens. I mean, people were not you were gonna work from home, you chose to stay to work from home,
It's in the personnel manual that we don't close the town hall or the town buildings unless the select board chooses because of the weather or whatever. I don't remember exactly what it says, but it's in the personnel manual that all employees get.
Yeah.
So some of us can work from home if we need to. I chose to for my own reasons because when the lights do flicker here, my QuickBooks shuts off and then it gets all messed up. So I said, I'm gonna work from home because I have the generator, it'll be steady. Susan, I think you were like, I'm gonna work from home. Tammy can't work from home, no one in her department. Tori can't work from home. Pedro really can't work from home. So if you can't come in, it's in the personnel manual, then you call and you tell your supervisor that if the weather's bad, I'm not going to come in.
It's not usually a problem. I mean, it's not usually a problem.
So if we don't close town hall, and let's continue to use our code enforcement officer as an example. He lives in good weather an hour away. I realize that it took him longer this time, and it was bad road. He chose to come in. If he decided on his own that he didn't feel comfortable driving in, would he take essentially a PTO day, a vacation
Yes.
day?
Yes.
Yes.
That's how that would work?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So maybe, Paula, you can pull that out of the manual, take a look at it, send a note out to those people who are involved with it as to what the policy is and, you know, call ahead or whatever, just as a reminder for them to know. Again, most everybody's
Most of
fairly
the
local,
people,
but
I talked to most of them today. He's at a seminar, so I couldn't talk to him. I haven't seen him.
yeah,
He wasn't in today.
just so it's, again, reviewed,
It's
it's
a
deep down
rare
in the
occurrence,
policy.
and it usually is not an issue. Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you. Board business, Volunteer Appreciation Week letter, activities, draft for committees. Yes, it's the board would like to recognize employees and volunteers at a function on June 21st to be held at the Highway Department, much as we did 2 years ago. And I understand our fire chief is going to help do the cooking. That's what I understand. The letter is good, just to make that one correction we had talked about earlier, Susan, we'll fix that, and we'll get that sent out. And also, we need to send a note out during Volunteer Appreciation Week to thank our volunteers. Yep, that sounded good.
So June 21 is a Friday.
Yep,
Okay, so it's an,
yeah, Highway Department,
and it's in an afternoon thing or a
Yes.
noontime thing, or,
noontime, I believe. We did.
We start at noon.
Starts at
because we
noontime,
do food.
correct. We
Yes.
do lunch, we do a luncheon,
Okay.
yep.
This is for just the volunteers.
And employees.
And employees.
Yes,
Yep.
yes,
So I'll say volunteers and employees.
yes. Okay, anything else on that topic? Next item is the evaluation forms. We're gonna review those. You wanna hold them off until we get to some other things done?
Yes.
Okay, let's do that, skip over that. 2024 initiatives, Laurie asked about that, and she had presented that to us a month or so ago, a while back.
Yeah, so I had talked about this before with the previous board, and I know Glenn had submitted stuff. So I think it's important if we set initiatives for what we want to accomplish this year. I don't know how you want to deal with that, Ellie. Like, do we want everybody to submit what they think we should be doing, or do we want to just decide now? I mean, I've since added a few more things to my list, my initial list, because we've already done some of it, but.
Yeah, and I have three things. I want to, of course, include the repair of the front stairs, upgrade to the town hall, and eliminating our audio problems. And the town hall is definitely going to be a work in progress. That's not going to be accomplished in 1 year, but the other two things. What's your pleasure, Glenn?
Well, I had submitted, when we talked about this before the last board changed over.
Yeah?
I had four things that I was particularly interested in, not only from my own efforts, but for the board in general. One is to explore the possibility of getting Kingston onto community power for hopefully the reality of trying to get some better power rates for residents. So, these are all things that I marked them down and I verbalized them,
Yeah.
and I'm willing to work on them because they're of interest to me. The second one that I had was to wrap up the flat marker for the Joe Thompson Memorial tree.
Yep.
And while we're on that subject, I'll tell the board now that the marker was ordered today, and it'll be delivered to the DPW department in a few weeks. So you can check that off the list.
Excellent.
And just also know that I spoke with Robin Thompson. I had a phone call with her a couple of days ago. I sent her a picture of what the text was. She was very pleased with it and very happy with it. So, the two other things. One is we talked about establishing a memorial, a volunteer memorial, of some sort.
Yep.
And I don't think this is something that will, necessarily happen quickly, but I'd like to at least start investigating it and thinking about some ideas of how we might do that. But the last, and it's certainly not the least, in fact, I should put it at the top of things that I would like to do, and that is to finish the work that we need to do as a town to establish a water utility. Not that we're putting pipes in the ground, but to get the structure so that if and when we need to provide municipal water, we will have the corporate infrastructure
That's great.
to do that. Now, we did part of it already a few years back. We had a warrant article, but it's, if I remember right, it's a multi-step process. It's at least 2 steps, so we took that first step, but I think there's another piece that we have to do. So it's something
That definitely needs to be.
something I'm interested in and something I'm willing to work on.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, hold on a second. Should we type, I mean, did you want to change anything that you had, Laurie?
Yeah, so I really want to work on just putting the structure in place for town administrator, understanding that's gonna have to go on warrant article for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before it gets approved. But just really thinking about, interviewing other town administrators and figuring out, their jobs, and then looking at ours and how we would have to move stuff to get, and that's a long process. So I want to kind of start looking at that. I want to get some org charts done for the town, right? Just so people know who, what it looks like, because it's a very flat organization, to understand that. The website's already going. I'm still doing policies clearly. And then I guess when we talk about the performance evaluations, that I stuck something on there, but maybe working with Peter on increasing community engagement and involvement, since that's something that we both really hold dear. And I think part of that is, holding town halls or something in that aspect. So maybe come up with a plan and then we can figure that. Okay.
Well, we probably should break a couple of these down into short-term goals and long-term goals.
I think so. So maybe, right, so then maybe if we all, I don't know.
How about if I reorganize this
Yeah,
sheet?
and then-
And then you hand it out to you, and you guys can look at it again.
Yep.
Move things around.
Yeah.
Just so that we have a clean piece of paper to
Yeah,
work with.
right.
Okay.
And have like manageable things, right? We don't want 20 things, right?
Well, you
Like,
want to, right, and you
Yeah.
also want to have short-term goals and
and
long-term
long-term
goals.
goals, right,
I think
exactly.
That would be
Yeah,
good.
that sounds great.
Okay, and if you want to add anything else, just send it to me and I'll pop it back up.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to have a longer list, and then we just pick the ones that we want to work on.
Yeah.
As short-term
That's true,
goals.
Yeah.
that's true, and especially like even long-term goals. I mean, there's, like the town hall will be a long-term goal.
Yeah, and you can, because you can work on 4 or 5 long-term goals, because they're long-term. They're not all going to be happening at the same time, right? So, we
Right.
can- yeah,
Okay, I'll definitely put something together for us.
thank you.
Okay, other board business, the Rockingham Planning, we got a letter from them on infrastructure, and I know Phil's gonna want a chance to take a look at that to follow through in that, on the Rockingham Planning Commission on infrastructure, was it infrastructure? Yeah, but, that's the transportation, yes, thank you, yeah.
Oh, it's their request, it's a regular, recurring request for transportation projects,
Yes,
I think, Phil, is that right? Yes, okay.
yeah, and Phil's gonna take, it's lengthy, he's gonna take some time to look at it, see how, whether that's something we should be getting involved in. Okay, other board business, Mr. Bakey.
I just want to report back to the board that we did receive back the inspector's vehicle. It's all done, it's completed. It was $1,180. It's registered, inspected, it's got new brakes and exhaust system. And spoke to Paula real briefly, and the only thing I believe is we need to do a follow-up with the police chief as far as driving record, just a thumbs up to turn the vehicle over to Pedro. And we do need to address, I actually don't, I've already talked about that, the gas, it comes out of the gas budget, the fuel budget.
Yeah.
And probably something that we don't want to entertain the idea of scheduled maintenance of the vehicle, so it doesn't get to the point where it was. So it's gonna be looked at.
So, and just for the record, Peter, this is all being done with the understanding that the vehicle stays in Kingston, and it's for Kingston business.
That's correct, and as you said that, that's a good point, because I think it would be very beneficial, because we do have town employees that they go to Concord, it's training or whatever, so I think it's gonna be a multi-purpose use. Obviously, the inspector, it is the inspector's vehicle, so.
But it's not a commuting vehicle for the
You're
inspector.
correct,
No.
you are correct, it is downstairs, and
And
that's
that's the distinction I want to make sure we're clear on.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for taking care of that. It's worked out good. Okay,
It looks good out there.
and it looks good out there, exactly. Love that color.
And actually, to be honest with you, the drive's actually really good. It's a good vehicle. I think it's gonna be perfect for him. You know, he's in and out of construction sites. He's got a couple small blemishes that he can't take credit to that were there prior, but I think it's gonna be absolutely perfect for his application.
Okay, great. Okay, public comment number 2. No, okay.
Not under public comment, but
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we don't have any updates from DES, Susan, on the RFP for the
Yeah, I haven't
poet
heard
systems.
anything.
Not yet, okay. I figured I would have seen it because I'm on
You're
that email
copied.
chain, but
Yeah.
I didn't know if you might have heard anything at the late hour.
No,
Okay.
sadly, no.
Yeah, I did skip over committee liaison reports, so I think I'll go back to that before we go to correspondence. Peter, I'll start with you this time.
I have nothing for a
Thank you.
liaison. I haven't been able to talk to Pedro. He was busy with some inspections, and I have nothing at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Chuck?
Budget committee, we're waiting, they're gonna have another meeting in the next month. Conservation canceled their meeting till this week, and the fire department, Graham went over his updated stuff on what was happening over the weekend, and I have nothing from Tim.
Okay. Glenn?
I have nothing.
Okay. Emma?
I went to the museum meeting last week. They are gonna take on the Boston Post cane initiative, so they were more than happy to do that, so that's kind of cool.
Great.
They had their elections, and their board composition is the same as before. Ruth is the chair, Jeff is the vice chair, and Kathy is the secretary. And then their big opening is Saturday, April 13th, but it's not as big as they'd like because they have all of the contents of the Grace Daily in the old,
Oh,
right? So there's still,
construction.
yeah,
Okay.
right. So it'll be a scaled down grand opening.
Okay, great. I don't have anything new to add myself, so we'll go on to correspondence. We have reappointment for the Heritage Commission, that's in one of these folders here. Solar exemption application, a veterans credit application, ARPA disbursement watershed plan grant for the Lake Association, a letter from Muriel thanking us for our support, an invitation to the Eagle Scout ceremony. How does that all sound? So do we need a motion on the Sanborn Head one, Susan? Or just our signatures?
Oh, for the watershed plan results?
Yeah.
Okay, put an initial on there, they just need to know you reviewed it, if you want to vote, saying that you're ready to send it, that's fine, if it's for
Are we all set?
Yeah, it was really just the going from 20 to 21. It
Oh,
wasn't.
okay, that's that one, okay,
Yeah, it
gotcha.
wasn't clear,
Okay.
like, when that happened and what that new I wasn't gonna take the time to print out these tables and compare.
Great.
Okay, so then,
You
yes.
could vote to-
we're all
That'd be the only comment.
Okay, then we're all set to move forward on that. And this is for ARPA fund disbursement. Oh, that's for the, is that for Phil's?
I think that's for that, is that the one with Forest Bell? It's the grant that had to go through the town. for
Yes.
That watershed plan.
Yes, exactly, correct.
We just get those periodically for disbursements.
Okay. What's that? Yeah, I thought I'd leave them to the end. Okay, and these are the two policies that we did approve. And they do need signatures. This one does anyways.
There was more than one solar, we had a couple more come in today.
Okay. Okay, the appointment to the Heritage Commission is for Robert Bean. And, okay,
I'll make a motion that we approve the appointment of Robert Bean to Heritage Commission for, and it's a reappointment because he's on the
yes,
committee
he's on
already.
it now, right?
Is it for a term of, must be for something. What, Susan?
Three years.
3 years.
Yep.
Okay, that's my motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. This is for automobile recycling yard motor vehicle junkyard license for Ken's Auto. This is a renewal, I believe, right? Do we need to take a motion on that one as well?
I guess my question there is
Who checks on
who
it?
inspects it to make it okay for us to sign it? Is that a Pedro thing? Or is
You
that
can send Pedro or the health officer out to take a look. We do that periodically. He wasn't there to ask today, so it just came in today. If you want me to have him go and look first.
I think that's a good idea.
I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
If we
Someone
have,
should look at it, I agree. The property tax credit?
For solar, maybe?
I think it's one of the solar.
Yeah. This is a veterans one, okay. Pass that to you. This is the fire, okay. For the part-time employee at the fire station. And this one here. Put them to you. See, we have an invitation for an Eagle Sense. Anyone?
it's on May 11, isn't it?
I don't know.
The initial in here? Sampling thing?
No.
Well, it looks like it.
She's- Did you want to,
Susan, on the Sanborn thing, you have a received and a bunch of lines. Are we supposed to initial? All right.
The Eagle Scout invitation, I believe, is for May 11.
okay,
Okay, and I am not available that day, so I cannot go.
2 p.m.?
What day? If I'm available, I'll definitely go.
Okay,
Oh, this is the other.
all right, and then we have National Day of Prayer.
Just a quick thing, Lori, I'm trying to write down here. So May 11th is the scout thing. The scout, the Eagle Scout at the school, 2 p.m. I'm gonna make a suggestion that maybe, as the board, we can maybe write a letter to that young fellow, because that's not a very easy accomplishment.
Yeah.
And then with our signatures, as the board, kind of congratulating, and we could do
That
that.
would be nice, Susan.
I think that'd be very nice. He invited us.
I'll second that.
Yeah, thank you. Great, thank you. I should be able to make that as two, Lori.
These need to be signed.
Thank you. Okay, we also have the letter, the facilities use by the Fire Association and Fire Department for June 28th, 29th, and 30th.
The only thing that's missing there is the police chief's sign off on it.
Yeah, and the road agent.
Oh, okay. Do we want to wait until we have those, or do we want to sign it with that as a contingency?
I'd rather sign as a contingency. I mean,
fine.
Yeah.
Contingent
So
upon their
Susan,
approval.
if you could hold it until, not process it until you've got the signatures on, from both police chief and road agent,
Right.
DPW.
Okay, and the only other thing we need is a motion on the minutes from the last meeting, and then we go on to the review.
Move the minutes.
Second, somebody?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
All right.
That was for April 1st.
Yeah, last week. Okay.
I had one other thing, Ellie. So last month, or last meeting, we talked about, you know, how the boards and committees are gonna be doing Monday, the first Monday of the month, right? And then just to do if they want to do a 10-minute presentation, and I told you I would just kind of come up with what that looks like, and here it is. So, and that table was just representative, and they sign up if they want.
Okay.
If they don't, right? So it's really 10 minutes, you get 10 minutes, pick a month if you want to do it. If you don't, that's fine too. And then, so I just said that I would kind of,
That's
Thank you.
something I send to all the committees.
yeah, I'll send that to you, yes. And I think Heritage is gonna do May's. I think they were gonna. We should probably
talked about
clarify
the-
with Ernie.
Certified local
Right.
government.
Yes, for the
Yeah,
certified
if
local
you could
government.
send that to
Yep.
all the board
Yep,
members
I
as
will-
well.
yep,
and then
I will
they
send
can
that out.
share it with their liaison and the
Yep,
committees.
yep.
Be good, thank you very much.
Sure.
That'll be helpful. Okay. We want to do anything on this poor guy from Ox Ridge?
Yeah. I'm just kind of curious on that whole project down there. We dealt with that quite a bit on the planning board. And I gotta think this town somewhat has a responsibility to cease that whole project. I mean, they're not in compliance. Everything's different. They got a major drainage problem. Something along the line has failed very drastically down there. And you got to feel bad for those people that have invested and they're a resident of this town, and it's not in their doing. It's almost like it's out of their control, and now it's forced a financial burden on them. So I think this is speaking from back in the days of the planning board.
Yep.
I believe some inspections, I don't want to say weren't done correctly, but something fell through the lines to make requirements when they come before a board, and they dictate what they're going to do, and they didn't do it. We have an obligation to kind of step in and say, okay, I think it's almost like we gotta revisit that, or we gotta do a site walk or something to kind of see what they promised they were gonna do and what they've done. And it's just now, like I said, now we're seeing, I understand there's probably condo docks, which we have no control over.
Right.
Because now they're talking about swimming pools and everything else being put down there. But to my knowledge, you need a permit in the town of Kingston to put in a swimming pool. Which they never got. So
Right, 'cause-
they got parts of the drainage, the lighting for the streets, which is public safety. It's failed. They haven't done any of this stuff.
So how do we address that?
That's my question.
Can I, sorry.
I was just gonna say, I would suggest that we get Glenn Greenwood involved, and it's gonna take some time, and to go back through the records and see exactly how it was left with at the last meeting with the planning board, and you know, what the planning board told them that they're supposed to do, because they know they had engineering, and they wanted to move lot 20, and
They were supposed to get rid of lot 20.
and supposedly the drainage problem was solved and signed off on. That's what we need to find out about. I think that our engineer signed off on that.
Yeah, our town engineer did sign off.
I'm just thinking out loud of the things that
yeah.
that I remember, so I think we get a list from Glenn, have him go back and look at it, and come up and say, okay, these are the things, you know, that I think from the records that we have some kind of standing for. And then from that list, we're gonna probably have to give it to Pedro for an enforcement.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe we have Glenn and Pedro work together to get their arms around it and then come back to us.
It is a lot, but
lot.
it is a lot. Since then, we've instilled new rules for these other developments, because even though they're not a town road and they're a private entity where they have condo docks and everything else, it's almost like our hands are tied as far as how we can enforce this stuff. But if they present it to the town that they're gonna build this and that was not built, we should have some enforcement that we can step up, because I can tell you there's been at least 3 different contractors down there trying to fix that mess, and it's still a mess. And those poor people that are invested that money to live down there.
Oh, it's up there. I was just looking to see where it was.
Yeah, behind the golf,
Yeah,
you know, it's just, you gotta feel bad for the people that have invested down there and they have really not a leg to stand on.
I know Mr. Dufresne has passed on, but was it his company that's still in charge?
I think so.
So it's still we're still dealing with the same entity.
I believe so.
Okay, well, let's figure that out, and, because I have to agree, I feel bad for these people that live there, that they should have filed, we all kept saying it was a civil issue. It is.
Well,
And
just,
we can only do so much for
And that's
that.
right,
Well,
they were told that before, that
They were told that.
right, and some things are civil issues, but as you said, Peter, there are certain things on that site plan that, as part of their approval, that they were required to do. And if those things aren't done, the town has the responsibility to enforce that.
Correct.
and the fact,
And the obligation to do it.
and the fact is that probably the bond is not no longer there, as he refers to in the letter, which is gonna make it difficult for the roads, because if it's only the first coat and they never came back and put the,
But I believe there's more things they wanna do down there. So,
well, yeah.
Right, we just gotta stop somewhere.
yeah, no.
Get caught up
No,
and then go
yeah,
forward. But
exactly.
knowing everything in the process now, but let's get a handle on what has happened,
Correct.
okay?
Is that like the trees that Bresnahan's?
Ugh, don't even say that.
That's,
Don't even
and
say that.
Mitch and Mike, and it's Devon, they still never planted them, and never got done.
It's on Pedro's list to address. I asked him the other day.
Yeah,
It's just that it's a,
well, we need, well, good.
again, it's
He's got-
a, again, it's
he's got
a,
the ability.
prioritize, right? So,
And if he
Yeah.
puts a cease and desist on the gate, maybe that will get him to put the trees in, if we can go that far with him looking into it.
I'm willing to go that far.
Oh, absolutely.
so before we leave the subject of Granite Fields.
Yeah,
Are you gonna speak with Glenn and Pedro to let them know, or do you want me to talk to
or
them?
Peter, do you want to
or-
do that, since you were coming off the planning board? I don't mind doing it, but
Sorry, we went from, what I was talking about to Bresnahan, so which one are we talking about?
Go back.
Go back.
go back to Hawks Ridge.
Correct.
Would you talk to Glenn Greenwood?
Yep.
And Pedro to
Correct.
tackle this for us?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, I will. Okay.
And then
Sorry.
you can always bring up Bresnahan, but that was on our table.
Okay, that's, I know, that's kind of you threw me, I kind of went into signing when you brought that up, so,
Okay,
all right, no problem, I will do that.
thank you. Okay, the only other thing left is to review the evaluation forms. Just throw them out the window, come up with something new?
yeah, that's my plan. That's my vote. That's my vote.
So you're planning to use this one for this year and then revamp? That's what it sounded.
So I think to have a really good system, we need to take time, right? And have the right people decide who the right people are, because we're looking at a 360 for employees to be able to evaluate their employer.
Yep.
We're looking at what supervisors give to their subordinates. We're looking at what the board gives to the department heads, right? So 3 separate, right?
Maybe
3 separate forms, right? So I think we owe it to ourselves and the employees of the town to make sure that we're evaluating the right things and not just doing it because we're supposed to do it. And I think that takes time. right? With Paula looking and getting best practices, and I think all of us have our own experience in evaluating employees and what works and what doesn't. So I think we should just go with what we have for this year, and then take our time and really do a due diligence for next cycle.
And I'm going to add upgrade or performance review forms on our to-do list of initiatives.
Yep, I have it on mine, actually. I was gonna create a working group to
that's where it
redo.
belongs.
Right, create a working group to redo performance evaluations, and so that we can, yeah, and we do it right.
We do it right. I agree with you. I absolutely agree. Sure.
Paul, are you good with that? Okay.
I just want to make sure that when we're doing this, we're also looking at what the wage matrix committee is doing, because with the steps and how the steps are increasing, and the performance evaluation will feed into whether or not they get a step increase. So I think I agree, do it this way this year, but then that working group should be working with the other working group, because we are evaluating job description templates and how a person would go from step to step, and we have our due date of July to have everything done. So I just want to make sure you guys are all aware of that.
Thank you.
It was just, and I think the work study group, the wage study group, I can't talk anymore, will have insight into this, so we'll come up with some of it too.
Okay.
At the time.
That sounds like a plan.
Until we have to start doing it, but.
Okay, anything else to come before the board?
And just to let you know, I am gonna turn over the registration and the keys to Paula.
Yeah.
So she's gonna complete what we talked about with Joel.
Yep,
And then on to Pedro, but
Yep.
I'm out, I'm done.
right. Giving it to Paul is the right way to go. Okay, any other business to come before us this evening?
It's not, I'm just gonna send in the request to the state for the driver's
Yes,
record.
get
I don't
that
have to go
checked
through
out.
Joel.
But you'll also hang on to the keys and
I
the
will hang on to
registration?
those, yep.
Okay.
Did you,
Until such time
Okay.
as it clears.
are we all set? All
Motion to
right.
adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Second. No need to vote on it. It's